got the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You got a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real crime.
Warning. This episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. And this week, we're going to be continuing and concluding the story of Franklin Dale Church, which I named Fire Chief. I'm very honored again today to have my dear friend, or a longtime friend, and the best criminal defense attorney in Livingston Parish, Jasper Brock, with me. How are you, Jasper?
Doing great.
Great to have you back. Y'all, if you hadn't heard the series of Mo, Jasper was on the final episode, and he got to come in and testify. He was the defense attorney on that trial for Mo, and he got to talk about everything. It was fire. Best episode by far in the whole series, and hands down. But today, I brought Jasper back. I'm going to thank you, Jasper, first of all, for coming back. But we brought him back so you can hear the non-Woody side of Franklin Dale Church. Now, please go back and listen to the first episode if you haven't before you hear this one. So first of all, Jasper, for the people who don't know, who haven't listened to Bloody Angola or to Mo, who are you and where are you from? What do you do?
Okay, my name is Jasper Brock. I go by Jace. I've been an attorney in Livingston Parish for 30 years, around 30 years, I guess. It's hard to keep up anymore.
Right.
And I do exclusively criminal defense, and part of what I do is I have a contract with the public defender's office to take cases that they have a conflict on. And so just like Mo and I think you called the episode The Nice Guy, the guy that cut the baby out of the stomach.
Oh, yeah.
That was a conflict.
Yeah.
Those are Christina Constance are all conflict.
Right.
Generally when it's a bad case, somehow that we find a way to conflict it, and I usually get it.
But let me talk about that real quick. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think you usually get, especially the most high-profile ones like this, because they know you have the experience. They're not going to give it to a rookie, right? Certainly they have contracts with much younger attorneys with less experience.
It seems to work out that I get the worst ones.
I know you get the worst, but I'm telling you, they know when it comes back on appeals that Jasper Brock's going to have done it correctly and handled his business. So I think that's why you get it. But so on Franklin Dale Church, I actually hadn't thought about him in a lot of years, and you and I were talking after the Mo episode, and I went and looked it up, and first of all, I immediately recognized his picture and who he was, and hell, I worked with him back when I was on the street, and they'd respond to crashes and, house fires and everything. You would just think he's a clean-cut, good guy, fire chief of Holden, right? That's how many fires they have in Holden, but it is. I mean, he still was fire chief.
Right, but he did car wrecks and all kind of stuff.
Right. He did everything, but in public servant, at least that's what he portrayed. And so, tell me how you came into contact with him.
Okay, well, his was a unique situation. What happened? If you listen to the first episode, which I did, and it was great.
Thank you.
He gets arrested the first time for enticing this 13-year-old girl to meet him for sex, and I think he got caught before he could ever consummate the act.
Right. But he brought her a pack of cigarettes. Yes.
Right. Yeah, a specific kind of cigarette she asked for. And so he goes to jail. He had some savings, and he hires either Louis Oglesby or his son, but that law firm paid him a bunch of money, to bond out. And then a couple of weeks later, or a couple of months later, I forget, he did it again, and he went back to jail.
Right. What he did again is he had contact with this.
We had more than just contact.
Yeah. Well, she was at least 13 at the time. This baby in my mind, right? But go ahead.
So when he was having contact with her the second time, one of the sick things that he did was he gave her to his son as a birthday present. I don't remember if it was the 18th or the 21st birthday, but he had this little girl have sex with his son. And I don't remember if he watched or not. Doesn't matter if he did. So the son got arrested as well. And, of course, Mr. Church got arrested a second time. So the public defender started representing the son because Louis Oglesby or his firm represented Franklin Dale Church. Well, when they found out about the second arrest, they came in and said, "Oh, Judge, we didn't sign up for this."
Right.
The judge let him out and let him keep all the money.
Right.
And then they went, "Oh, we got to find a lawyer for Franklin Dale Church, and we can't do it because we have the son." Right. So that's how I got stuck with it.
And got stuck with it. And y'all, let's go back to it. I did not cover that. I'm remiss in not covering the fact that he gave this baby girl to his son's first birthday present. And it's not sex, it's rape. And she can't consent, right?
Right.
And they get arrested. He gets arrested again. And now you get
now I get the whole ball.
The whole ball.
The first charges and the second charges.
So do you go in and talk to him at some point? What happens?
I go in, and he's because unlike Mo, he's still alive and he's still appealing. Right. So I can't really say anything he said to me because it's attorney-client privilege. Right. But I just can't say he was not overly cooperative and not overly talkative. He just basically said, "I want to go to trial." They can't prove this.
Gotcha. So what did you think about like his looks or his I get his demeanor?
He was fairly calm about everything. I remember he had a mustache. He wasn't a big guy. I mean, he wasn't like didn't look like Brad Pitt that 13-year-old girls would be falling all over him.
Right.
He wasn't young. It wasn't like he was 22 or 23. He was an older guy.
Right.
So it was shocked me that any 13-year-old would do any of these things with him, but willingly.
Well, I know that he grooms his victims, and it came out in the trial. All the other family members that come forward that he did over the years, and the mama even catching him doing it to one of the girls, or fingering whatever he was doing to her, and the mom was like, "Oh, boys will be boys. They're just going to do that."
Oh yeah, she just excused it and threatened to punish the cousins and sisters and everybody that had told on him. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So he'd gotten away with it his whole life.
Yeah, and that's because he was smart. Until he wasn't. They always get careless in the end, right, and fuck up. So you go to trial, and did they offer him anything ahead of time?
Well, before you go to trial, they did what was called a prior hearing. Mm-hmm. It sounds like prior, but it's not prior. But prior and prior kind of mean the same thing. Prior is a person's name. It's state versus prior. But it's, ironically, it's where they have a hearing to say if you can show where somebody did something similar, like if you're charged with armed robbery and you were a drug dealer before, they couldn't prior that in and use it against you because it's not the same conduct. But if if you're molesting somebody and you've molested somebody in the past, then they have a hearing and the judge decides whether that's similar enough to be used against you in a trial.
Showing a pattern.
Right.
Right.
There's a pattern or lustful disposition, and
Right.
there's a test that the court uses to see if it meets all the steps. And so we had a lengthy prior hearing.
A lot of witnesses came forward and said,
So, I think it was probably went from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock one day.
And that when the family members testified?
Right.
And
All these cousins and nieces, one right after the other.
Right.
He did this to me, just sick crap that he did to these people. And we had, I don't know, these people aren't going to be familiar, but at the old courthouse, it gotten so many cases and it had so much business that they had to annex the church across the street. And they turned the gymnasium of the church across the street into a courtroom. Right. And so that's where we had the prior hearing, was in the courtroom annex across the street. And it was not like a normal courtroom. It was just a big room. And you had a big long table with a podium in the middle, and the judge, of course, was in front. So that you'd have the defendant and his attorney on one side of the podium and the prosecutors on the other. But you were basically at a big long table. There was just a podium separating you. So we had this hearing, and every one of his cousins or sisters or whoever came in and testified. He raped them, or he pinned them up against the wall and did stuff, and he was just brutal.
As a defense attorney in a prior hearing, can you challenge any of that? Or
all you can do is cross-examine them, but it's like one right after the other, and you're sitting there going like, what am I going to ask him? And you're looking at him, and he's just basically expressionless, No. And the only things he would say, would be like stuff like, not like I didn't do it, or it just, she's lying because, she said this happened in October, and she was never there in October. She was only there in the summer. It'd be minor details that had nothing to do with anything that proved his innocence.
Right. Well, it wasn't like she was out of state. It was just she got the time wrong. Right.
But anyway, at the time, the prosecutor was Charlotte Herbert, who's now Judge Charlotte Foster.
Right.
And
talk about her all the time, y'all.
But I don't know if you've ever said this about her. Beside the fact that she's probably one of the top phenomenal prosecutors ever in this parish.
Absolutely.
Every bad case you ever talked about, she prosecuted.
Probably one of the top I've ever worked with in my entire career.
And if it was a bad case, from Gerald Bordelon to every bad case, it was her.
Yeah.
She didn't, they don't give it to me anybody else.
Right.
The Wahlberg case, every bad case she prosecuted. So, of course, this qualified.
Right.
But she is also the most proper person you've ever met. I've known her 25 composed. Years. I had never heard her utter a cuss word. Not a damn came out of her mouth. And we spent like 4.5 hours doing this prior hearing. And we finally finished the prior hearing, and the deputies come and take him out, and the victims go out, and she leans over in front of that podium, looks at me, and I don't want to quote her exactly because I'm making it wrong. And she either looked at me and she said, your client's either your client's a piece of shit or your client's a fucking piece of shit. But either one, that came out of Charlotte's mouth. It was like, I've been doing this a long time. Gerald Bordelon, all these people. And this is the one she says, your client's a piece of shit.
Yes, indeed. Oh, my gosh. And she always took everything to heart, too. I've seen her cry a couple times at juries and closing statements and things like that. But, she was like, what you do for defense, she did for the prosecution, in my mind, being the best. I wanted, and for her to get fired up like that, especially after all the cases y'all have heard me talk about in Real Life, Real Crime that Charlotte handled, and her to say that on this
I'm telling you, I've been there for a lot, even the ones I didn't handle.
Right.
Murders that she did, I've never heard her utter a word like that. Yeah. And I remember telling her husband, Larry Foster, that story after he didn't believe she said it.
Right. Well, you know what? He is a piece of shit, or an effing piece of shit. Hey, lifers, you want to hear something that's even more shocking than any true crime episode? Since 2020, 2 out of 3 people report feeling extreme stress, and it's affecting their sleep and affecting their overall health. These days, stress seems to hit us from every possible angle in any environment at any time, day after day. Unfortunately, all that stress can have a serious impact on your immune, digestive, respiratory, and cardiovascular system. And of course, it can do a number on your cognitive and mental health. Wouldn't it be nice if you just had an off switch, an easy way to reboot and reset so that you could quickly find a calm, clear, and positive way to handle whatever life throws at you? Just Calm, y'all. The breakthrough new stress and mood support formula from Just Thrive. Yes, the same Just Thrive that produces our favorite probiotic. Here's what makes Just Calm so radically different from anything you may have tried before. It's the first retail available supplement to feature the proprietary psychobiotic strain known as BL1714. Psychobiotics are a new class of products that utilize beneficial bacteria to support your best mood, cognition, and emotional health. And BL1714 is the most heavily researched and scientifically verified strain available. In fact, numerous studies have shown that BL1714 can be an absolute powerhouse in the fight for your mental well-being because it quickly promotes a healthy response to everyday stress, encourages a steady, serene, and balanced mood, drives mental clarity, focus, and alertness, and even supports great energy and optimal sleep. Imagine being able to turn down the noise and turn up the calm with one addition to your daily routine that takes just seconds to implement, and it's all natural. This is true stress management support that's built for the modern world. So bring on the insufferable rush hour traffic, the deadlines and mounting pressures at work, and the relentless miles-long to-do list. With Just Calm, you'll have the power to take on the day feeling cool, collected, and in control. Paired with Just Thrive Probiotic, this is one dynamic duo for proven gut, immune, and mood support to help you live your best life. If you're ready to up your game and feel your best, you can get 15% off both Just Thrive Probiotic and Just Calm or any of their other scientifically proven products when you go to justthrivehealth.com and use code RLRC at checkout. That's RLRC at justthrive.com. Use that code at checkout, y'all. You can thank me later. Peace.
So anyway, so we go through that, and then I'm like, oh,
and what happened at the end of that?
Well, of course, the judge said, well, yeah, all this can come in at the trial.
Right.
And so then I, tell him, look, man, you still want to go to trial? They're going to hear all these people say all that stuff.
Right.
It's like, I want to go to trial. And I firmly believed that either one of two things. Either he thought that girl was never going to come and testify again, that he still had that much control over her.
I believe that's what it was.
And I think part of him was so proud of what he did, he wanted other people to hear it.
He wanted to show off.
He wanted people to know, hey, I was able to get her to do all these things.
And then in the end, if she doesn't show up, then look at me, haha.
Right.
But
and so he wasn't interested in any offer, and I think they made him one of because it was 8 counts or something, and I think they offered him over Charlotte's objection.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think the judge didn't want to go to trial, or had something to do that week, and I think he offered him a year on each count, so
really
consecutive for 8 years or something, and he was like,
he said,
"No," and I'm like, "Are you crazy?" He's like, "No, I want to go to trial."
That's crazy. Take that shit to trial. You and I talked about this briefly when I was reading it. I was surprised. I guess prosecution has a reason that it wasn't any aggravated rape charges. It was all indecent behavior.
I don't understand why they billed it how they did. Because and the evidence was basically overwhelming.
Yeah,
she had made a
statement.
Admitted.
She admitted in the CACs, the Child Advocacy Center interviews.
That it happened. You had all
her nipples were pierced.
Well, not only were her nipples pierced, they had the implements that he used to pierce with his and her DNA on it.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it. So
they had him
just dead to the right.
Yeah, they had all just.
So
mounds of evidence.
They go back to Dave and Christina Constance, and they weren't going to go for any aggravated rapes. Then they told me I was supposed to have the meeting with Scott and them, and Leanne was technically lead on that. Charlotte wasn't. Charlotte ended up being. But
Well, Charlotte didn't do Christina. Leanne did.
Yeah, so she did.
Yeah.
David. Or she was at least supervising, because I'm gonna tell you what happened. I thought we were going for the death penalty. We got 40 something cases, and and I was supposed to have the meeting the next day, and never call ever came. The next morning, Charlotte walks up. It's Leanne's shit, and Charlotte walks up, and I was like, "Oh, this isn't gonna be good for me." And she said, "Woody, we're going only molestations. We're not, don't go in there and say anything about aggravated rape." I went in there. I said aggravated rape. In front of the grand jury. And the people got all pissed off, and that's when they cried and slammed their hands on the table. And one person said, "Detective Overton, I want to know how come this person's been getting away with this 40 years." I said, "That's a great question to ask Madam Prosecutor." And that's when Charlotte got up and left and went and called Scott Perley, and they came back and said, "We're going 4 counts of aggravated rape." Yeah. So I get it. I mean, it's a lot of money.
Well, this one, I don't think ever went to a grand jury.
Yeah. So it's a lot of money, and whatever the reason may be, it's a sick case.
It's worse than anything I've ever had.
Just out the box. But so y'all go to trial, and can you tell me about, if you remember anything about voir dire during that, the jury selection or anything?
I don't remember the voir dire too much. I don't think we had a hard time getting a jury. The trial was just brutal. Yeah. There was just not much you could do. I mean,
from a defense standpoint,
all you can do is, like, when this cousin gets up there and says, "Well, wasn't it true you weren't ever there in October?"
Yeah.
No, I think I was. Oh, okay. Well, I remember the biggest point I scored in the trial probably was the Livingston cops.
Randy Dufresne and
when they first got him at the ballpark,
right.
He had gotten up there and said something that was just totally wrong about how they did it or where they did it or where they took him. And so I spent 20 minutes on, he's lying about this. He's got to be lying about everything. He was just mistaken, but he,
Right. You're trying to poke the holes in the box, like you told me.
But there wasn't a whole lot of other than that.
Yeah.
And we were hoping that the girl wouldn't get on the stand. Yeah. But she did. And I remember just learning stuff on the stand that I didn't know.
Yeah. What about when they were questioning her about her calling him daddy, and I had it. I read it in the last episode, and she was like, "I don't think I can say that." I'm like, you can say it, and then Charlotte got it out of her and stuff. But him putting a dog collar around on her neck and covering up and whipping her.
There was all kind of crazy stuff. And like,
did they
like the piercing the nipples and giving it to her?
So because I wasn't there.
Her son.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff that got worse and worse.
Did they introduce the DNA on the nipple piercing stuff at the trial?
I think they did.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
And it was I forgot what I was going to say, but it was crazy how he contacted her after the first arrest. That the mama had taken her to like a condo in Destin or something, and she kept staying in the bathroom or whatever. And finally, mom was like, "What are you doing in the bathroom?" She said, "I'm reading my Kindle." And somehow they get on the Kindle. Somehow he figured out, or she figured out, how to email back and forth through a Kindle or message.
Yeah,
if it's not.
And I never heard of that. And I have a Kindle.
And I had another case where they were people that weren't supposed to contact each other, and I don't remember what case it was. They were doing it through the comments, like on some game, like Words with Friends or something. Right. You could comment at the bottom. And that's how they were sending messages, like through a game with words.
Right.
And so that's how they were contacting each other. And she was just 100% loyal to him. I think she contacted him and kept contacting him.
He had her so groomed, right?
Oh, yeah.
I hope she's doing it.
And I think he really believed she's never going to never going to testify against me.
Pure narcissism at the psychopathic, definitely, but
and I think he thought, you have the CAC tape, but you can't. The law says you can't play that tape unless she testifies, because you can't cross-examine a tape.
Right.
And he just, I think he firmly believed, she's not going to ever say anything against me, and I don't think she wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she had already said it in the CAC, but I'm sure she did want to. Do you remember anything about her demeanor in the courtroom or anything like that?
Yeah, I think she was just scared, and then she wouldn't really look at him. She didn't want to look at him. Yeah. And I think it wasn't because she was because she was testifying, I think she didn't want to disappoint him.
Right. That's crazy.
It was the whole thing was bizarre. And I remember I did something with Jim earlier. The one thing that stood out about Franklin Dale Church sitting next to him was I've sat next to a lot of people, but for some reason, maybe it's because you get beat up in the shower at whatever when you have those kind of charges.
Chomos.
Yeah. When I tell you, he had the worst body odor.
Oh my God!
I mean, it was just brutal to sit next to him, especially like that day we had to do the prayer. I mean, I'm dying.
You tell him, hey, bro, or tell the deputies, please hose this bitch off before you bring him to court. Oh man! And so you had to sit there and breathe that and listen to all that. That's crazy. I don't know. So the trial goes on. I guess the ultimate nail in the coffin is when she takes the stand. Oh
yeah, I mean, well, he was done when the cousins, the family, whatever. I mean, they were ready to put him in jail. Yeah. And then I think it probably took them like 10 minutes to convict him.
Yeah, longer to pick the jury foreman than it did to convict him.
It did not take long.
So
they wanted to kill him.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I used to tell people, I'm like, are you stupid? You're going to get there and you're going to have a jury of regular people who go to church on Sundays and have kids and don't rape them and have regular jobs and whatever. And it's really not a jury of their peers, right? Because they're not fucking child molesters and everything else. And they're going to want to kill somebody. And that's the truth. And I mean, unfortunately, that's how it is. They want somebody to pay. And fortunately, some of the cases that it's false convictions is because it's such a horrible crime and that they want somebody to pay.
Right, and believe me, they had no sympathy for him. Yeah. Of course, nobody did.
Yeah.
Once the story came out, it was like, and he just never fazed him.
No, so
I mean, it's phasing him now. Obviously, he's filing all kind of appeals saying his sentence was excessive, and I remember afterwards the local whatever Denham Springs paper is. It'd come up
Livingston
to me.
Parish News.
Yeah, Livingston Parish News came and said, well, do you have any comment about, I think it was after sentencing, after he got like 60 or 80 years, whatever he got. And they said, you have anything to say? I said, no. I was like, I had him, but he turned down 8 or whatever it was. He got what he deserved, the dumbass.
Right, that's right.
And I think
at that point.
Because I remember a judge coming, did you really say that to the paper?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you meant it, call a spade. So let's go back to, because I wasn't there. I think the listeners will find it interesting. When they go out and, as a defense attorney, if they come back and say, the jury's back in that fast, you're screwed. Or it's not.
Yeah, there wasn't one.
You're not screwed. I knew your client was screwed.
I knew before they went out that I didn't have time to go eat dinner or anything. I better hang around. This one was coming back. This one was coming back pretty quick.
So they bring y'all back in, and I know that excitement's in the courtroom, the tension, and whatever. And they bring the jury, they file them back in, and the judge says, "You reached a verdict," and they hand it out. Can you tell me what happened at that moment?
Yeah, he basically did no real reaction.
So they said, count one. Guilty.
I'm looking at him, and he's just pretty much stone-faced.
Yeah.
And, it was like he wasn't fazed by it. I mean, I'd have been, on the floor knowing I was going to prison forever. But
exactly.
He was unfazed. The thing that stood out about the verdict was when it was over, a lot of times we'll go in the back and talk to the jurors.
Right.
And a lot of times you'll go back there to see what you could have done better. I knew there wasn't anything I could do. I wasn't. I just went back there just to thank them for their time or whatever. And of course, Charlotte had gone in before me. She was probably in there a couple minutes before me. I had done something. I went into the back, and she was already in. Well, I opened the door and I walked in, or the bailiff opened the door. And I walked in, and I could tell. I mean, they wanted to kill me.
Yeah.
You could tell they wanted to kill me. And I remember Charlotte going, "Hey, no, it's not. Believe it, he didn't even want to be here. He's a nice guy. It's not. He didn't want to even represent that guy."
Exactly right. So holy shit, Charlotte could feel it that there was about to be another crime in the courthouse. Yeah.
Right, because they literally were ready to kill me.
Yeah, and that goes back to the regular people can't hear this shit. You know, it's like real life or crime that when I started with the concepts, I'm like, fuck, they want to hear a story. I'll tell them a story because I was listening to all those number ones, and it was like John and Ramsey and reading over, and I'm like, I'm gonna tell them some real shit, and because they're true crimes, the number one genre in the world, right? Until they actually hear it. And I was in Dallas a couple weeks ago doing I was co-speaking at Podcast Movement on how to have more than one successful podcast, and the ladies that were on the stage with me, they have two. And we got done. They were like, "Oh, we'd love to do something. We'd love to do something." I'm like, "Cool." I said, "I'm working on whatever." It was the Darla Routier case, the death row mom out of Texas. They were like, "Oh no, we don't do any cases about kids." I'm like, "What do you mean? We don't do cases about kids?" I'm like, "Fuck, kids get killed too, and raped and everything." That's a huge part of it, but nobody wants to talk about that. Right. And but it's a real deal. But back to it, I'm going to touch on that real quick because it just came to my head. You know what? When you walked in that room and the jury is having hatred toward you, or like, let's say Denny Perkins, attorney, gets on the news or whatever, and everybody's having such hatred against this guy, you know what? Fuck, everybody deserves a right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with I got all kinds of threats and, Facebook, people posted Facebook comments about me, how, when Jeffrey, I can't even remember his last name.
Which one? The one that cut the baby out?
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Jeffrey somebody. I can't remember his last name.
Mr. Nice Guy, y'all go listen to it.
Right. And he got a deal for 20 years, and it was a negotiated deal, and the girl that got the baby cut out of her stomach was in on the deal, but I got pages and pages of Facebook comments about I should get the 20 years, and somebody should go cut something out of my wife's belly, and I was like, I didn't have any choice.
Right. So I'm going to make that, because, I've never talked about that. Y'all, everybody, no matter how big of a piece of shit they are, deserves, and not only deserve it, I want them to have the best counsel they can have, because I've never had anything of mine turned over on appeal. You know why? Because every motherfucker I went up against was like Jasper Brock, and they handled their business, and shit didn't get. They couldn't claim an ineffective counsel. They can claim whatever the fuck they want to. They're going to, but it gets thrown out because they had the best.
And people don't realize, that you're doing your job. You get these people, and some of them, you don't have a problem with. You have a problem with what they did,
right?
But as a cop, you probably arrested hundreds of people. You were like, if I wasn't arresting this guy, I could have a beer with him.
Or I get to the jail and book him in, and we're shaking hands when I'm leaving, right? I'm like, hey, you fucked up.
Franklin Dale Church was not one of them.
Yes.
He was not somebody I want to have a beer with. He's not somebody I want to discuss or sit next to ever again.
Smell him again. Yeah.
But Jeffrey, he was just like you call it. He was a nice guy. I didn't have any problem with him. Yeah. Christina Constance. Yeah. She couldn't have been any nicer.
Nicest lady in the world, but she just happened to suck her 7-year-old's dick.
And there's some that you just, I can't get away from.
Oh yeah, it's like Mark Lewis. I almost lost my job. There's a couple of them almost lost my job when we were alone.
That was straight. Shit. I almost got Mark Lewis, and the only reason I got out of that one was I went to the jail to see him, because back then they used to talk to you before they gave it to you, right? Then just drop it on your desk. Right. And I went to go see Mark Lewis, and for the people who don't know, he's the one that killed Caitlin Idell.
Screwdriver Red, yeah.
And I walk in, and they bring him in the room, and he sits down. He goes, "I know you." I said, "How the hell do you know me?" And I had a daughter the same age as Caitlin, and the same age at the same time when I was doing Franklin Church.
My daughter was the same
I had a
age.
13-year-old daughter when I was trying that case.
My daughter was the same
She's
age.
now 23, but at the time she was 13. But anyway, I walk in, and he goes, "I know you." And I said, "Well, how the hell do you know me?" He goes, "Well, I was just in your house last week." I was like,
"What?
You were in my house He said, "Oh yeah, you had that cabinet built. I was the painter they sent in to paint your, your house." I was like,
"Are you shitting me?"
That was enough to get me out of it.
Crazy, right? So you got out on that ground. Prior knowledge. Wow, fuck him too. That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, Franklin Dale Church. Special breed of monster, right?
Yeah, I can't even remember all the stuff. I mean, like the Pearson was one that just
they're giving it to the son for the.
And I think he belonged to some fantasy sex club. I didn't know those even exist, like a fantasy football league.
Yeah.
And they would meet or either by over the internet or actually meet. And he had bags of like sex toys, and they would go through all their fantasies and whatever. And he just was proud of what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell. I mean, he was just when that girl was talking to him or those people were talking, he
probably puffed
he
up.
just perked up. It was like, I did that.
I did that. And he got away with it for however long.
And you're just looking at him going, well, not only do you stink, but come on, man.
Well, no shit.
Like, at least be over there faking it, going, bullshit, I didn't do that.
Right. Show some, throw something down. I'm going to ask you this.
Like the confirmation for Kavanaugh, he's in there screaming, I didn't do that. It's like,
yeah, I'm sure you didn't. Buddy.
This guy was like,
hey, you talked before about every one of your clients when it comes to trial, you give them a yellow pad and a pen. I know you can't say if he wrote. Do you remember if he wrote anything at all?
Yeah, he did. I mean, he participated, but like I said, all the time it was about, stupid details.
Nothing that would negate the allegations. It was just
stuff you could go up there and ask questions, but nothing that was going to change the facts. Like, she said it's happened on Tuesday. Well, she only came over on Thursdays,
Okay.
But you're telling me she came over and she's 13. What was she doing at your house?
And you didn't put the dildo inside of her, whatever you did to one of them.
Or like, the DNA. It was like,
how do you explain that?
He's like,
that's crazy.
She wanted me to do that, whatever,
Yeah, because she can consent.
Right. Like,
and I don't know. I got nothing else to say about it.
It's. I've done a lot of them, and that's not one I would ever want to do again.
Tell me, I'm going to ask about this. So, in case the listeners don't know, when you get found guilty, then you get locked up, but they have to come back for a sentencing date. Do you remember anything about that?
Well, yeah, because you...
y'all, this is raw and unscripted. Okay.
Right. The whole thing's pretty much
raw. Right.
I'm not overly prepared for this.
But that's the best ones.
One of the things you have to do as an attorney, and it doesn't matter how the trial went, if it was a close call or it was a slam dunk or whatever, by law, you have to file a motion for new trial and a motion and a rest of verdict saying that, there wasn't enough evidence to convict him, and ask the judge to overrule the verdict or to grant him a new trial because they shouldn't have been convicted.
Right.
And, in cases like where it's just obvious he should have been convicted, but you got to get up there in front of this courtroom full of people and argue, oh, no, Judge, they never should have, because but if you don't do it, it's malpractice.
Right.
So, that's what I remember about the sentencing was,
doing that.
having to stay, and there's a courtroom full of people because it was high profile.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Judge, they didn't prove their case, and Charles looked at you like, right, I didn't prove.
Who was the judge?
Bruce Bennett.
Oh, God. Yeah, he doesn't play anyway, right?
Yeah.
And then, so you had to do that.
So you have to argue all that stuff and embarrass yourself because there's plenty of evidence. I've seen some lawyers just kind of bail it in and go, Judge, motion for new trial. He's all right. Make your argument. Well, it's in my motion.
Yeah. Read it. Yeah. I
don't need this. I don't need to say it out loud. It's in my motion.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah.
And then, he gave him the sentence, and I think he was shocked by the sentence because the judge was like,
made him
I'm going to give you
Did anybody make victim impact statements or anything like that? Or did he make any kind of statements from
He made
himself?
no statement whatsoever, and the judge gave him the maximum on each count, consecutive, whatever that turned out to be.
Yeah.
It may have only been like 10 years per count.
Yeah, I think it was he got 60 or 80 years, something like that.
So, it's probably 8 counts at 10 years a count.
I guarantee you, if he gets the good time, he ain't getting parole.
No.
And that's if he lives that long because he's up at bloody Angola. And I really meant it when I know they listen, because cell phones are a big thing now on the contraband. And what better way to pass your time in prison than if you could get to listen to podcasts and shit. Or maybe it's the guards, COs that tell them, but I have people that tell me about these people. And I know this motherfucker's up there.
Something against me.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he can file something against me too. He can eat a bag of dicks, as far as I'm concerned. But I really want the convicts, the true bad guys, the murderers, the armed robbers, whatever, to know this dude is. I'm saying this, not Jasper Brock, is the lowest of the low child molesting piece of shit. Don't let him pull the wool over your eyes. I mean, maybe he's using his body as a self-defense, anti-rape mechanism.
And I don't know if you remember, and I don't want to disparage anybody, if I get in trouble for this, but his sister was a bailiff.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. His sister, I don't think she was still there at the time, but she was a bailiff for a couple of years before that.
Yeah.
And I never realized till after the case was over.
Yeah.
And then they said, "Oh, we're gonna they'd hired an attorney to appeal it."
Yeah.
And she came and picked up the file, and I was like, I didn't really.
Yeah. Well, you know what? On that, it's certainly not the sister's fault, and my heart, and I know yours does too, goes out to the victim and victims, plural, in this case, and even I can't say anything about his son because he raped that little girl, but.
Well, yeah, but just think about it.
Yeah.
His mindset is he's doing something great for his son, and he's making his son a sex offender for the rest of his life.
Exactly, right?
I mean, that's what a present for dad.
That's the gift that keeps on giving, right? Register, please.
Never be able to get a job or an apartment for the rest of my life.
And register wherever you go to live. Everybody in the neighborhood knows you're a child molester.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. That's the best present ever.
Wow. Special kind of monster. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a special level of scum.
Yeah. Well, Jasper or Jace, I appreciate you coming in again. Y'all, again, this was totally raw and unscripted. That's the way I want it to be. You go back and listen to the first episode. You got to hear the defense side, which I think is important. And I think it's important, too, that people actually know that defense attorneys have to do their job. And everybody, even this piece of shit, deserves
and
defense.
For all those people, because I read the comments that they're all out after Jared Ambo for representing Denny, and
he's doing his job.
Yeah, I mean, is he making money? Yeah, I'm sure they
he
liquidated everything they owned to pay for him, but it's not.
Yeah,
all these people. He needs to be in prison with him.
Yeah, well, the Constitution. The Constitution. You have a right.
Yeah,
to defense, right? So that's part of being an American, good, bad, or different.
And in some of these cases, you don't have a choice. They don't ask me if I want this case.
Right.
I guess I could terminate my contract if I didn't want it, but
but
I do it for the health insurance. So
right there you go. But the deal is, though, you do it. But you do it to the best of your ability. It's not like you're like, fuck them, I'm going to stiff them. I know because I've seen you too many times in court, and even on cases where, like this one, it's a shitbag show for you. You can't win it because of the overwhelming amount of evidence. You still fought for this dude.
Right, and then there's cases, too, that you get these murder cases, and it's murders. It's automatic life.
Right. That's it.
Why are you going to trial? You don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's right. No attorney.
They're not going to plead to life in prison. You might as well go to trial.
I always say no defense attorney is going to plead. If you take death penalty off the table and second degree murder,
they didn't offer Mo anything less than life. He had to go to trial.
Right. So, and you might get that one juror or whatever that fucks it up, or
if something happens later on, you get an appeal. And
that's right. So take
look
the
at
shit to trial.
Guys in the Wahlberg case.
Yeah, I know, right?
Death penalty, and now they're back down to like 25 years.
I know, right? I'm gonna cover that.
This guy's gonna do more time than the guys that killed the Wahlberg kid.
Yeah, and that was a horrible case, y'all. That's Eric Wahlberg out of Albany, and I'm gonna do that story one day after it's all adjudicated. So, Jasper, any closing thoughts?
No, I appreciate you coming. Hopefully, I don't.
Man,
didn't say too much to get me in trouble.
No, I don't think you said anything to get you in trouble. And y'all, I know because of the overwhelming response I had after the Mo series, I think more people want to hear from the defense aspect on cases. So will you come back again?
Yeah.
I loved having you, brother. It's good to see you. And y'all, I'm going to conclude this episode of Fire Chief. Say this podcast of stuff we got to say. Go listen, like, subscribe. Anywhere you can listen to a podcast. Check me out on YouTube now. Jim Chapman, my producer, has that channel up. This one will actually be on video. Most of mine aren't because I record by myself. So this if you want to see what Jasper Brock looks like and you don't know, go watch this video.
Not a pretty picture.
Jason and I are like two male stud models up in here on the camera right now. But go to YouTube. It's on the Real Life Real Crime podcast. I'm on Instagram and all the Facebook pages. Oh, don't forget the Real Life Real Crime community app. We were the first true crime show to ever have their own app and app stores. Download it for free. Go there. I go there first now because I keep getting fucking put in Facebook jail, and I don't even know why. But I'm the only one that censors the app, so go check that out. Patreon members, convicts. Jace, if you don't know, the convicts are what I call my subscribers through the app. Patreon and convicts, I appreciate you. You're going to get a bonus episode before October 1. They'll be locked up in the vault, and that'll make like 17 or 18. So y'all, I get the message just every day from a new lifer. Hey, I just binged 11 hours or how many hours and more content. If you want, go subscribe and you'll get all those bonus episodes, plus your commercial-free early releases of each episode. And LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency, we're about to start the raffle in October, and we'll get. I'm going to do a special drop on all that. But if you're a lifer from, pick a country, Jace.
Germany.
If you're a lifer from Germany and you want to be an organ donor, you don't have to be from Louisiana. Go to lopa.org, fill out the little form. It takes like 2 minutes. Become an organ donor and save lives, people. That's what it's all about. And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life Real Crime, the podcast. Until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder by You. Peace. Real Life Real Crime is a true crime podcast brought to you by your host, Woody Overton, executive producer, Jim Chapman with Envision Podcast Studios. Your music is provided by Chase Tyler and the Chase Tyler Band. Follow me on Instagram at Real Life Real Crime or at Overton Woody. Check out our numerous social media pages. Also, go to the App Store and download our free Real Life Real Crime community app, which contains all things real life, real crime, and true crime, and uncensored and run by me. Wherever you listen to a podcast, go like, subscribe, and review to Real Life Real Crime or my other podcast, Scorched Justice. Thank you. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your